Free boat ride for 3. Now, who should I take? Keeve?
Yes.
And T-Pain.
This was genuinely important. Thanks to the unrelenting march of time, the uninitiated see this skit and the subsequent song as nothing special. They might not even find it all that funny, but Lonely Island's I'm on a Boat and the rest of the group's repertoire righted SNL's sinking ship and single-handedly kept it afloat in turbulent cultural waters. That sounds like a bold claim to make in favor of a guy who put his dick in a box, but just hear us out.
Gentlemen, what do you have for us today?
In 1995, after 20 years on the air, Saturday Night Live was staring down the possibility of cancellation. The 94-95 season was universally panned and is still thought of as one of the worst in the show's history. If you subjected yourself to any of season 20, then it's not hard to see why.
Well, there it is. I think it's, Bob, what do I want to say?
NBC was demanding change, and over the next few seasons, SNL's creator Lorne Michaels did what he could to appease them. With the budget at the forefront of his mind, he shrunk the cast, swapped band leaders, writers, and just generally tried to keep his head down. Astonishingly, it worked. At least for a little while. In 2001, the show's overall direction would be altered for years to come after the events of September 11th. With heavy-hitting political topics becoming a much more sensitive issue, the cast pivoted to pop culture and only lobbed softballs at current events when they absolutely had to. So when the 2004 presidential election rolled around, their toothless coverage of both candidates showed viewers once and for all that SNL had lost its edge.
Now, I don't know how many of these internets are carrying these rumors, but they're just wrong.
Without a willingness to push boundaries, the once revolutionary sketch comedy show was slipping from the cultural consciousness. Not only was it not funny, but it had lost relevance. And just when SNL was at its weakest, it also had to contend with a new threat to its existence. The early internet was gaining traction. Loyal viewers were turning away from their TV screens to focus on their computer screens instead, and a new flavor of humor was being nurtured there. The attitude of these early 2000s online spaces was charmingly contradictory. It was equal parts sardonic and sincere. It was experimental and familiar, but most of all, it was really, really stupid. Most people didn't understand what was happening on those chat forums and personal GeoCities pages, but an entire generation was going to be defined by it. And anyone who wanted to be a part of the future had to get in on the ground floor. Akiva Schaffer, Jorma Taccone, and Andy Samberg understood this. The 3 recent college grads were living in LA and looking for a way into the entertainment industry. Together, they created a website called Lonely Island, which they had also self-deprecatingly called the apartment they shared. The Lonely Island website hosted the trio's video skits, and those skits eventually got the attention of Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, Lonely Island wasn't immediately scooped up by SNL. Lorne Michaels only caught wind of their comedic talent after Fallon hired them for a writing gig on the 2005 MTV Movie Awards.
Out of here.
What?
Now.
Tom?
Originally, Samberg was the only one brought onto the show as a cast member, but after Michaels finally watched a few of the group's videos, he stuck Schaffer and Taccone in the writer's room, and Lonely Island was officially reunited. Unfortunately, they didn't exactly thrive in SNL's more traditional environment. Most of their sketches never made it to air. Their sense of humor just didn't fit the show's established patterns, so Schaffer and Taccone went back to what they knew best: online video. SNL's very first pre-recorded digital short was directed by Schaffer, written by Will Forte, and starred Forte and Samberg. It's hard to find nowadays, but it was uploaded directly to NBC's website on December 3rd, 2005. The short, titled Lettuce, saw Forte and Samberg sitting on a stoop talking about the loss of a mutual friend while chomping down on whole heads of lettuce. We told you the early internet was stupid, right?
I don't know what to say. Sometimes you don't need to say anything.
This was a huge change in direction for the show. It was Saturday Night Live, after all, and these shorts were pre-recorded and being put online in an age when internet video was still new and seen as a lesser form of entertainment by most of the general public. It's impossible to know how many people watched the short, but SNL saw enough promise in the concept to move forward with it. Coincidentally, a new video sharing website popped up on the World Wide Web just 2 weeks later, and Lonely Island, being the tech-savvy internet users they were, uploaded their next SNL short onto the burgeoning platform just 2 days after it went live. Obviously, that platform was YouTube, and the short was their song Lazy Sunday. Written by all 3 members of Lonely Island as well as Chris Parnell, Lazy Sunday was an immediate and unparalleled success in terms of viral videos, pulling in more than 7 million views in just a few days. The video grabbed the attention of the younger generation in a way that none of SNL's more traditional sketches had in years. Not only that, but it drew huge numbers of people to YouTube, years before social media and easy link sharing were commonplace, and so the two grew symbiotically and meteorically. Suddenly, SNL was on the radar of millions of teens and college kids again, and it was all thanks to Lonely Island and their comfortability with the weird landscape of internet culture. Viewers didn't need the show to be politically scathing or even particularly witty. These shorts were nonsense, and that's what made them great. Their popularity and influence quickly outgrew the confines of YouTube's video player, and in 2007, Samberg, Tacone, and a whole host of SNL mainstays starred in the movie Hot Rod, which followed an amateur stuntman trying to raise money for his stepfather's heart surgery. The film bombed in the box office, but has since garnered a cult following thanks to the absurd humor Lonely Island has become known for.
Cool beans.
Cool beans.
Of course, the world and the internet move fast, and Lonely Island had to move too. Shoving lettuce in your face was no longer enough to keep the content-hungry masses entertained, so the group evolved, and they got lewd. In the late 2000s and into the 2010s, Lonely Island put out a number of raunchy songs and music videos. Perhaps none of these is more renowned than 2009's Stuck in a Box, which went on to win a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Original Music and Lyrics. And in case you haven't heard that song in a while, it's important to remember that there's a whole section that gives you step-by-step instructions on how to put your junk in that box. Just a decade before, there was no way something like that was going to win an Emmy, but Lonely Island pulled it off. While they officially retired from SNL in 2012, they've remained part of the zeitgeist. In 2016, they came out with Pop Star, a mockumentary of the music industry that shone on a spotlight on all Lonely Island's best characteristics. And they've returned to SNL a handful of times over the years to grace the show with a new shot of relevancy. The most recent of those returns as of writing this script was back in November of 2024, with their new song Here I Go. The song features Charlie XCX, who's one of the biggest pop stars in the world right now, but something's a little off. Here I Go is every bit as dumb, funny, and crass as you'd expect it to be. It even hits on a relevant social issue in a familiar parodic way, and yet it hasn't managed to take off the way their earlier material did. So what's up? Well, the internet is a much bigger and more complex place than it was in the 2000s. Today, a lot of us spend more time online than we do offline, and while the humor is still largely contradictory and stupid, the way we consume and engage with it has changed. Lonely Island isn't made up of a bunch of college grads anymore. Andy Samberg is 46 years old. He and the rest of the group just aren't as in tune with online culture as they were 2 decades ago. And the content they're used to creating is frankly outdated. Injecting a famous pop star like Charlie into the mix doesn't fix the problem, but it also doesn't change the facts. Lonely Island made huge strides in bringing internet humor to the mainstream, and they did it by bringing the mainstream to the internet. They helped make YouTube what it is today. They eased SNL into a new digital era, and without them, there's no telling whether the show would even still be on the air. But that's just how we feel. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Lonely Island deserves credit for keeping SNL on the air? And which of their songs do you still find yourself singing? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, consider liking this video and subscribing to Nerdstalgic for more just like it.